Estimating has just become far more superior. The typical Microsoft Excel spreadsheet doesn't allow you to change specification levels. It doesn't allow you to reduce the labor in specific components with a click of a button. If this was possible with estimating Excel spreadsheets, what would end up happening is estimating companies would have to give away their entire database. At Estimating Online, we've actually given away our entire database. And what I'm about to show you is how to reduce a $2.1 million project. And we're going to take it down as far as possible without removing the risk by adjusting our labor. You will notice that I have locked the structural elements of the build. Earthworks, stormwater, demolition, concrete slab, timber, structural steel. I'm actually going to lock the bricklayer as well. And I've got the plasterer locked, I've got the carpentry locked, and the plumber locked. I'm going to leave the electrical unlocked a little bit, and I'm going to approach that as I get down to it. I'm also going to lock supervision. Not going to worry about house cleaning. Now, first step I'm going to go to is I'm going to expand out on my balustrade, and I have a steel staircase. I don't want to touch the labor. I'm going to reduce the supply of the staircase to low. I'm going to expand out on the balustrade. I'm going to reduce the specification of the balustrade to low. I'm going to go out to my structural walls. Now, I'm not going to change the internal brick price and the external rough brick price because they don't need to be changed. I could reduce my price to see what the cost difference is. I'm happy I can buy bricks at that price. My windows, I'm going to change the supply of the glazing and frame to low, and I'm going to change, actually, you know what? Based on this particular project, I'm actually going to leave the specification at high for this stacking door. In fact, what I can actually do is I'm actually going to increase the construction price of that door to be a little bit more because I know that we're going to have a recessed track and it's going to cost a lot more money. I'm going to leave my labor in place to make that cost work. As I expand out on my roofing, I can reduce the specification of my roof cover, but I'm going to leave that in place at high. What I am going to do is I'm going to go down to my skylights and I'm going to change that to low. Plaster is not going to change. I'm going to go into my fixings. What I am going to do is I'm going to change all my doors. So if I go to the top header of the doors, I change that to low. All the items within that category go down to low. It's the same as my second fixings. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make a decision. I'm going to make a decision if the timber screen panels are going to stay at that price. If I want to change them, I press the plus sign or the negative sign. Plumbing fixtures is an interesting beast. What we want to do is we want to change the whole specification to low. But based on the client's expectations, they're going to want a high level kitchen. So I'm going to change the kitchen to high. I could get technical and I could change the specifications inside each category, but I'm not going to do that. As I go down into my electrician, what I'm going to do is I'm going to collapse the headings and I'm going to explode my lighting. We have $25,000 in place for lighting at a high specification. What I'm actually going to do is I'm going to leave the labor in place, but I'm going to change the lighting down to a low specification and I've just taken away $15,000. Tiling is the same situation. I'm actually going to cheat and I'm going to do a different way to calculate this. I'm going to change the overall tiling to low, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the labor to high. I'm showing you that this can work in the reverse. I go out to my cabinets. Cabinets is another specific example. From my memory, most cabinets are usually about between 8 to 15% of the contract value. So it's very important to have control in this category. We want to change the overall to low. Then we want to change the kitchen to high. We potentially want to change the ensuite to a higher specification, but we're going to leave that at low. If we want to go a little bit further, what we could do is we could potentially say the cabinets for the robes is going to be by homeowner. We can actually change that and cross that out to make that a zero cost. When I go to my floor coverings, I don't want to change my labor. I just want to change my specification level. Timber flooring, low. We just went from $19,000 down to $11,000 with the supply of our timber flooring. I go into my external items. I'm going to do exactly the same thing. What I'm going to do is I'm going to change my stone cladding to low. I'm going to leave my labor as high. Concrete pool is going to be a massive change. We're going to go from $150,000, changing it to a low spec down to $100,000. By no means, you're still going to get a premium product. It's just that we are reducing the amount that we're spending. Landscaping, change that to low. As I go into my air conditioning, I'm going to do the same process. So we've gone from spending $2.1 million now to 1.85. The process that I'm showing you here took me maybe 5 minutes to be able to do. This process is easy. You have access to the complete database. You have functionality pre-built into the system. So day one, when you register, you'll have access to do all this information all at once. If you have any further questions, drop me an email or give me a call. Happy to have a chat.